It is Labor Day weekend and we are on our way down to St. Louis. We're stopping in Bloomington Normal. We happened to go by the new Portillo's that they just recently opened, and you see that they have a replica of the old Doghouse restaurant that was just a little hot dog stand in Villa Park that started it all. You could order it online, portillos.com, and you can go to a lot of different Chicago locations of Portillo's, one of the best Italian beefs in my opinion. We have arrived at our first destination for our trip. We are in Smithton, Illinois. It's a nice little town down at the bottom of Illinois, almost before you hit St. Louis. It's about the same distance from Chicago as St. Louis is, and we're here to spend some time with our family friends. Our college buddies live here, and so we tend to try to come and visit them as often as we can. Usually ends up being about twice a year or so. And so what do you think we're gonna get to do today?
Go to Eckert's.
We're gonna go to a place called Eckert's, which is a local restaurant. Here's an example of one of the houses that's in the subdivision that our friends live in. They're not right on the water, but it's probably just as well because there have been some incidences of flooding in this region. But it's still pretty cool to have some lakes to walk around. If you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city.
Effort to go get it. That's good. Mary's going shopping.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, stop. You actually got one of my
This is a miniature zebu cattle. Oh, there's another one.
And a baby one.
That's a Angus cattle. Oh, and look at the baby one. Oh.
See the baby cow?
Baby cow. Oh, so cute. And move.
This is the buffalo chicken grilled cheese.
Yum.
Here is the St. Louis Arch, 630 feet tall.
It's so huge. How did you estimate that? Does it say on a sign? I don't see it.
We have arrived at our main destination for the day, the St. Louis Zoo. It is the first time we have been here since they've put in this bridge from the parking lot. And so we've got probably a bunch of new things that we will see that we've never seen before. Even though we're not locals, it does make sense to get a membership when you come to the St. Louis Zoo, because then you get discounts on everything that you do at the zoo, and you got tickets to take your kids to go to the different attractions.
But you eat your hot dog first.
Our first stop is River's Edge, which is the home of African and South American animals. This is a bush dog.
It's a rhino. That's a rhino.
Rhino.
Some Asian elephants.
And they gave a bath. It was like spraying it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Kind of sort of.
I think that was the first time we were here.
Watch it eat. Watch it eat.
It is neat to watch it eating.
You're trying to get a big
It's like an extra hand.
Let's have them take a butt. So sad.
Not really.
I'll get you out. Yes, what? Did it pick you off? It's the real thing. Here, I got it.
One real nice surprise is that they have Dole Whips here.
Like the penguins?
Well, no, there's a person that usually stands behind the door, and they'll come out and say, okay, if you
Coming on the left is the Montana Secretariat, where you can see insects, butterflies, and spiders. There, on your left, these are the females. That's for giraffe, antelope, zebras, and everybody can go up and on the right-hand side.
He's hot. They cannot jump right here. Can I get yours? So cute.
Is Wild Nation.
One of the biggest additions to this area was the Sea Lion Arena. They always had sea lions in this part of the zoo, but there never was an actual show. We didn't have the time to see the show today because our time wasn't there, but hopefully it'll be something we'll do when we return to the St. Louis Zoo.
Shoulders. Shoulders are here. Knees.
That's going to end our day at the St. Louis Zoo, one of the best free zoos in the nation, possibly the best. I'm partial to it because I used to come here all the time in some of my free time, just walking around and seeing all the animals. Of course, I go to the reptile house most often. My favorite animal is a snake. It is officially Labor Day, and this morning we found out that in O'Fallon there is a Tim Hortons, which we haven't had one in the Midwest states up until maybe about a year ago, I hear. So it's nice to know that they're here. When we come back to St. Louis, we get our Timbits and get our maple donuts, and that'll be great. We are here at Cahokia Mounds, spending a couple hours before we head back to Chicago. Before you head out on the trails to see some of the mounds, you can stop in the Interpretive Center Museum, which takes about maybe a half hour or so to look around the exhibits. This is what Cahokia looked around the year 1150. This is what it would have looked like with the village on top of the mounds.
We can?
The name for the people of Cahokia is Mississippian, which makes some sense since we're near the Mississippi River.
Large ritual feasts were held.
This is an interesting fact that the city of Cahokia was the largest city till Philadelphia. There are the three different kinds of mounds at Cahokia Mounds. The first one being a platform mound, which would be flat on the top, where the temples, homes of leaders would be. Then there are conical mounds, which are used as burial mounds. And then finally ridgetop mounds, which they say are actually the least understood of the mounds, but they seem to indicate the markers for the areas that Cahokia took up. It's almost like the borderlands. And this is a neat exhibit showing the excavation of a mound. where you could see some of the local crafts that would have been buried, and then they could find some skeletons of the animals that were around at the time. And some of the tools that they used. There's a whole bunch of axe heads that were found in a dig site. Monk's Mound is the tallest mound at Cahokia. If I remember correctly, they were saying something that it took about 300 years to build this. So they were very proud of it. The chief lived up on top of there, and so it's a really cool piece of archaeology. We are 100 feet high on the top of Monk's Mound, and the view back towards the rest of the Cahokia Mountains. You can see St. Louis in the distance. So that's going to end our fun trip to St. Louis. We'll be back sometime soon and get to see some other things around St. Louis area. We hope you enjoyed this video and give it a thumbs up. St. Louis, one of Rick's picks. Here's some interesting retail history that near Cahokia Mounds is this old sign that used to belong to a Venture store, which is a lot like today's Target stores, but I always felt that Venture was a little bit better than Target in its heyday. They had a lot of great electronics and CDs and video games. They even still have the stripes on the side of the building that they never quite got rid of it.
Cahokia Mounds with Rick's picks.
That's not what I'm doing.